Hello, my name is JL and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about ecosystems. If you don't know already, there are different types of ecosystems on our Earth, from a tropical rainforest to a desert, but today I want to talk about the marine ecosystem. And that ecosystem consists of the ocean. And there are different types of ocean, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Arctic to the Indian to the Pacific Ocean. And today we are just going to dive into what that marine ecosystem consists of and the type of adaptations the organisms go through in that ecosystem. So first I want to talk about the different zones and the different layers of the ocean. So the open ocean is usually referred to as pelagic, and so there are different pelagic zones or layers in the ocean. The first top layer is called the epipelagic zone. That is the top 200 meters or so, and that is usually known as the coastal zone. Next is the mesopelagic zone, and that's the 200 to the 1,000 meters. The bathypelagic zone, which is 1,000 to 4,000 meters, and the abyssopelagic, which is 4,000 and beyond. There are also different zones pertaining to the continental shelf. So the continental shelf's zone is called the neritic zone, and that is towards the continental shelf, and then when the shelf is dropped off, that is the oceanic zone. So towards the coastal zone, there is usually more light there because it is the top layer of the ocean, and that means more light, which means the more photosynthesis for the plants, which means there's usually this exchange of oxygen for the organisms in the water. So let's talk about the different adaptations that organisms in the marine ecosystem go through. First, let's talk about thermal adaptation. So usually, there are consistent temperatures throughout the ocean. And I mean this by, if you are near the equator, then your ocean is going to be a lot warmer than the ocean that is further from the equator. But in that, there are still different temperatures throughout the waters and through the depths. Usually, the deeper you go, the colder it'll get. And it's quite interesting because there are different densities in the water. So, for example, the Arctic waters is different from the tropical waters because the warmer water is usually less dense than colder water. And so the organisms, as they navigate through the different temperatures in the water, something that they do is they go through physiological changes. An example of this is that an organism can increase or decrease the proteins that they are producing. For example, there's a heat shock protein. Heat shock proteins are either upregulated or downregulated depending on the environment of the organism. Another adaptation is regional endotherms, and this means that they are able to control certain parts of their body's temperatures depending on their surroundings. For example, this is mostly seen in large exotherms such as sharks. They have white muscle and red muscle. The white muscle is really helpful for rapid movements when it needs to get to prey quickly or run away from predators quickly. But the problem is that causes rapid fatigue because it is an anaerobic movement. So they have learned to use their red muscles, which is the inner layer muscles, and when they use their inner layer muscles, the muscles contract and it is able to produce heat. By producing heat, the deeper they go into the ocean, the less shocked they are to the environment. Another adaptation is the reproductive adaptation. There are different stages of a fish's life. A common first stage is the larvae stage, And this is usually done in the pelagic open space of the ocean, as well as the reproduction of other organisms. They have different feeding behaviors, and the first one is planktotrophic, and that is when they are responsible for feeding themselves, which means they have to go and find their own food and they have to swim for it, and their parents aren't able to help them. But a lithotropic is you get assistance from your parents, and usually it's this yolk form where the yolk is able to supply you nutrients, and you do not have to go and find your own prey until you are ready, and that's when you become a planktotrophic. And there are different types of care that the young receive from their parents. For example, there are first eggs, and eggs are usually buoyant, and so usually the parents, they just lay their eggs and kind of say goodbye to the eggs because they are just going to be floating around on their own. And yeah, and there's another type called mouth breeding, and this is when the parent carries the eggs in the mouth and then spit it out. And what's cool about this is that sometimes the fish know to come back into the mouth when they are afraid. And then another type are marine mammals, and this is kind of similar to a human way of having children. They don't have too many young, and they usually have them once or twice or a few times within their lifetime, and they usually are taking care of them and nurturing them. And yeah, and so today I talked about the marine ecosystem. Though there are many other systems to learn about and talk about, I encourage you to keep watching, and please like and subscribe.